I'm working more and more with self-doubting entrepreneurs
Mm.
who sometimes think they're not good enough.
Hmm.
So I help them to essentially discover, or let's say get rid of the mindset of uncertainty,
Oh.
so that
Mhm.
they can discover how the potential of their mindset of mindset, and
Yeah.
restore inner worth
Yeah.
more than anything, because these are some of the factors that affect pretty well every entrepreneur. I think there's every entrepreneur out there at some point or another tends to doubt themselves.
Yeah. Wow.
And potentially, am I good enough? Am I not good enough?
Yeah.
And all the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome starts to kick
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So I'm really working with that type of mindset, so that they can, escape this mindset of uncertainty, because
Mm.
uncertainty plays a big part as well
Yeah.
in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And like I said, then they can finally restore that inner worth. Yet, what is the reason I chose mindset? Because I truly believe mindset is everything. Why? Because how you are thinking is essentially having an effect, or is creating an emotion. And to really simplify things, it's either going to create an emotion that feels good or an emotion that feels bad.
Mhm.
Now, that emotion that you are creating from your thoughts is going to have an effect now on the actions you're going to take and how you're going to behave.
Mm.
And then ultimately, those actions, those behaviors are going to have an impact on the results and the experiences that you are having in your life.
Mhm.
So, very simply put, if you look at your life and there are certain areas of your life that there are some results or some experiences that you're having that you're not entirely happy with,
Mm.
essentially you got to go right back to the beginning and become aware of what's going on with my thoughts. A really good coping mechanism, if you want to call it a coping mechanism for those who are listening and going through maybe challenging moments, is realizing that ultimately you can never fail. You can never fail.
Mm.
What do I mean by that? Because again, if I look back at when I had to close that shop, for instance, one of the biggest things that was a challenge for me was that I felt like I was failing.
Mm.
And on top of that, and I want to mention this because I think this affects many entrepreneurs as well, and individuals alike, not just an entrepreneur. And ultimately, I believe everybody is an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
because, and the reason I say that is because we're all in this business called life. Well, is because a lot of entrepreneurs are interested in let's say making the next sale,
Mm.
and which is very transactional.
Mm.
Yet when you can begin to make it transformational, and you can do that with any business in the sense of how are you treating your clients? Are you giving them the customer service that they truly deserve? Are you treating them in a way that you're transforming the way you do business, so that you create recurring trade,
Mm.
that you're actually building a relationship with your clients?
Yeah.
And this is where it begins to become transformational as well. For me, it's
Mm.
not about having thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. It's not something that I need.
No.
I'm interested in working with a group of clients who become long-term clients because we grow together.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. My name is David Dahlén Cruz and I am your host. In this podcast, we talk about life purpose and why that gives us meaning and direction for what we do in life. We talk about life and leadership. What gives us life? And how do we become and continue to be good leaders with a good influence on other people? How do we combine life and leadership in a healthy and sustainable way? These are questions we will discuss in this podcast. I am your host and coach, David Dahlén Cruz. Let's dive right into this episode. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the podcast Life and Leadership Connected podcast. And today the guest is a person called Ken Attard. Ken Attard. Is that the right way I say your name?
Absolutely perfect. That's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. And who is Ken? Well, he's a founder of something called Mindset Malta. And he's a mindset consultant. He has been in the corporate world for over 20 years. And he has worked with various clients for 15 years. And he now specializes in helping frustrated entrepreneurs to shift their mindset to create the result they desire. And that is also his biggest passion in his life. He draws his experience from his time as mindset consultant and as an entrepreneur, and as a father, and as a human being, as he says himself. And he offers, in fact, a free mindset awareness program that he calls the Mindset Choice, the choice that changes everything. And he helps frustrated entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot, as he says, their business. And he uses something called the ARC method. And he is an author of Consumer Educational Guide. And he calls it How to Step into the Magic of the Successful Entrepreneur Now. And he's also co-author of an international best-selling book called Making Waves. And he's regularly featured on local television shows. And you're based in Malta, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. And he's been over 20 podcasts and he's a dynamic keynote speaker. Is that a correct description of you, Ken?
That is correct. Something that I let's say add and again not to is when it comes to working with entrepreneurs. In fact, one of the things now for me that is really, really important is I'm working more and more with self-doubting entrepreneurs. Who sometimes think they're not good enough. So I help them to essentially discover, or let's say get rid of the mindset of uncertainty, so that they can discover how the potential of their mindset of mindset and restore inner worth.
Yeah.
More than anything, because these are some of the factors that affect pretty well every entrepreneur. I think there's every entrepreneur out there at some point or another tends to doubt themselves.
Yeah. Wow.
And potentially, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? And all the imposter syndrome starts to kick in.
Yeah.
And so I'm really working with that type of mindset so that they can, escape this mindset of uncertainty, because uncertainty plays a big part as well in entrepreneurship. Yeah. And like I said, then they can finally restore that inner worth.
Yeah, good. We'll come back to that. That sounds really interesting. Before that, could you possibly tell us a little bit about yourself, Ken, so we can understand who you are today and what brought you to the position you are today?
Wow. Okay. How long do we have?
No, but say for 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. So.
I know. I'm just goofing around. This is something that, again, I like to convey to people is like I like to take things with a bit of a pinch of salt, not take life too seriously. I think that happens as well. Who's Ken? Ken was born in Canada, Toronto, Canada. So that's why I still have a bit of an accent, although I have been based in Malta now for 45 years. Yet I did grow up in Canada. I started out as way back, if we want to go back, started out as a banker, then moved into sales, did quite a bit of sales, learned a lot about that as well. And then effectively in the year 2000, I moved out completely on my own as an entrepreneur, opening up retail. I was in the retail industry, also got involved in import as well. And along the way there as well, I got involved in network marketing or multi-level marketing, and that's where I got introduced to personal development, as I believe it still is. Yet the network marketing, multi-level marketing, personal development sort of goes hand in hand with that. You begin to listen to speakers, you begin to read entrepreneurial books. And I got very intrigued, and the nature of the business, I found myself getting in front of groups of people on a weekly basis. I would have in my office anywhere between 40 and 60 people a week doing presentations, and then the larger events. And what was interesting for me was I was really enjoying it. I felt quite comfortable being in front of people. And I was really enjoying the personal development aspect, and it got me very much intrigued. One of the questions that I asked myself was, how come, they don't teach us this stuff in school? And that was one of the things that inspired me to continue to learn more. I just continued on the journey of personal development. Although I was no longer involved in network marketing, yet I continued the journey of personal development, started to get involved in learning more, did my NLP practitioner and my NLP master practitioner as well. And fast forward, like, I mean, I got like I said, into retail then, import. Fast forward is to 2019, where I decided, you know what, I really want to get my message out there. Not that I was doing some coaching here and there, and sort of like on the side. Yet in 2019, I said, you know what, I wanted to want to get my message out there. I founded Mindset Malta. I just began to do some live Facebook lives, with some generic information. And then lo and behold, 2020, as we all know, COVID hit. And my predominant business at the time, like I said, was my import business, promotional merchandise, and that took a nosedive. And I decided there and then, you know what, I'm just going to flip everything. I believe I have a strong message to get out there, and I shifted everything during COVID to really begin to get my message out there when it comes to personal development, and that's where it's brought me to today. I wanted to work with entrepreneurs because I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years plus myself. And the other reason I wanted to work with them was because I believe they are, let's say, the leaders, some of them upcoming leaders, some of them have been established leaders, and they have organizations. And if I can help a leader shift their mindset and begin to look at things potentially from a different perspective, now they can have an impact on their organizations. So even though I may be impacting one leader, I'm still having indirectly an impact on many more people. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. And that has brought us to where we are today.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I wonder, how come did you choose to focus on mindset and mindset consultancy? I would like to hear your views about that.
Sure, absolutely. The reason I've focused on mindset is, and again, a lot of aspects intertwine, yet the reason I focused on mindset is because I know how beneficial it has been to me. And when I say mindset, and I'm all about simplicity, and I'm making things really simple. So when it comes to mindset, we're not talking about rocket science. Essentially, for me, what mindset is what you are predominantly thinking about most of the time. And a lot of those are some unconscious thoughts that are going on as well. But yet, what is the reason I chose mindset? Because I truly believe mindset is everything. Why? Because how you are thinking is essentially having an effect, or is creating an emotion. And to really simplify things, it's either going to create an emotion that feels good or an emotion that feels bad. Now, that emotion that you are creating from your thoughts is going to have an effect now on the actions you're going to take and how you're going to behave. And then ultimately, those actions, those behaviors are going to have an impact on the results and the experiences that you are having in your life. So very simply put, if you look at your life and there are certain areas of your life that there are some results or some experiences that you're having that you're not entirely happy with, essentially you got to go right back to the beginning and become aware of what's going on with my thoughts. So what does this mean? And this is why it's so powerful, and why I've chosen to dedicate, let's say, dedicate my passion towards my life, towards mindset and learning about mindset and conveying this message. This now means that you begin to potentially take more control over your life, over your business, because whether you like it or not, you're using mindset. Like you're thinking,
Mm.
you're using it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yet now, when you start to become aware, you can actually begin to use it purposefully and with intention. So this is why I've chosen to use mindset, because I truly believe more than ever now, it's everything. It truly is everything. And you can begin to take back that control. And let me make it very clear, you don't have control over everything, yet you do have control over much more than potentially right now you are perceiving, or someone listening actually perceives, because a lot of people think life is just happening to them.
Yeah.
When actually life doesn't just happen to you, you actually happen to life. You have that potential to create that. You are creating your reality consistently, continuously, on a daily basis, with all the decisions, the choices you're making.
Thanks. I wonder, is there some limitations when it doesn't work? I mean, it sounds very easy, and I agree with this chain of thought. You start with thought, feelings, actions, and so on. Absolutely, I do agree with that thinking. But is there some limitation when it doesn't work? Or does it always work for everybody?
It can work for everybody without a doubt, and it works all the time. The only thing is, because if it didn't work all the time, that would mean that you would have the power to potentially defy universal laws, which no one, like, it's a universal law is a universal law, and it works for everybody, or it doesn't work. Now, when we say it doesn't work, and this is really interesting, because it's simply because you still have not recognized potentially what's going on with some of your thinking. And when I say though, now the interesting part here is, because I simplify things as much as possible and made it very simple. We need to also recognize that your thinking, your thoughts, there's a connection between your beliefs and your thoughts as well. So what you believe is having an effect on what you are thinking, the thoughts that you are bringing into your life as well. So if you hold on to a thought that's not making you feel good, and you hold on to that thought for approximately 16, 17 seconds, another thought that's going to be aligned with that is actually going to come. So, and the longer you hold it, the more momentum you're going to create. So if you have this fear of something, and you've been holding on to that for a long time, you've potentially created a lot of momentum in the direction of that fear. So if you're scared that you're not going to make enough money, and it's something, and money is a big issue, and you're constantly thinking about it, and you're creating this momentum, it's essentially a frequency, it's a vibration, which you're aligning with. And those thoughts, you transmit those thoughts out into the universe. Call it whatever you'd like. Call it in universe, source energy, the quantum field for those people who are scientific, the field. And this is all being proven now scientifically as well. Call it God, if you're comfortable with calling it God. I like to call it the umami self. Why do I like to call it the umami self? Simply because umami comes from the food world, where umami, when you eat something that is so, so delicious, you can't even describe it. In fact, the definition of umami is the essence of deliciousness. The umami self is the essence of deliciousness of who you really are. And now we start to get into a little bit of metaphysical here. Who you really are. Some people call that your soul. Some people call that your spirit. But it has nothing really to do with the physical body. It's something internal. It's inner. It's on the inside. As we look at it, on the inside, not really on the inside, because it's everywhere. There's no limitation to it. And now when you begin to learn how to actually tap into that, now this is where you start to remove any limitations. Because really and truly, for the divine, for the source, the quantum field, are there any limitations? There are no limitations.
No.
Everything is possible.
Great. One thing we focus a lot on in this podcast is purpose, and that touches this. So I wonder, a follow-up question to your thoughts here. Has everybody a purpose? Is there a purpose for everyone? Or something that you create?
Well, some people stumble upon it potentially, but the way I look at it is this: I believe everybody has a purpose without a doubt.
Mm.
I believe that that's why you're here,
Mm.
and 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 potentially tapping into what that purpose
Mm.
is something wonderful. But again, let's simplify this, because a lot of people, this is the thing though, a lot of people, when it comes to purpose, I want to find my purpose, and again, they're making it a struggle. They're making it a fight.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating more and more resistance simply because they want to fight. They want to, they want to push through. And I'm using some terminology on purpose here, because in the entrepreneurial world, these words are used a lot, about pushing through. And in recent years, we hear about the hustle, and we hear about the grind in business, and this is one of my pet peeves, and one of the messages I want to get out to entrepreneurs is that all of these words that you were talking about, and pushing through, and all this stuff, it creates more resistance. Because if you have to fight something, that means something's going to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to make your life easier, you want to find a flow. You want to tap into inspiration. You want to potentially have an impact with people and tapping into your purpose. Now, finding that purpose, again, I like to make it really simple. And this is what I say. I say, when it comes to purpose, start to learn to just be really present in the moment that you're in. Because yes, you might have this grander or bigger purpose that you maybe have not tapped into yet. But let's start thinking about what you are passionate about. And that's a really good start, because if you can recognize what you're passionate about, there's a very good chance that somewhere along the line that is aligned with what your purpose is. And the other thing is this: if you could just go about your life from moment to moment. So right now we're having this conversation, you and I, David.
Yeah.
Potentially we have listeners listening in. My purpose right now in life is to be fully present right here, right now, and have this conversation with you. Nothing else. It's my purpose in life right now. When I get off this call and I move on to the next thing that I'm going to be doing, that will be my purpose in life.
Yeah.
So it could simply be having a conversation with the cashier at the supermarket. In that moment, being fully present with that person in that moment, that's your purpose.
Yeah.
And it's because ultimately, if you're doing that, that means you're actually caring, especially when you're interacting with people.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to remind business people as well, entrepreneurs as well, because those are the people I work with. If you're, and you've went home and now you're with your kids, or you're with your wife, or you're with your husband, or whoever you're with, now being present there and not still at the office, not still thinking about your business and what you need to be doing tomorrow and the day. No, right now, your purpose is to be with your family, for instance.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is really important to recognize. And as you do that, the more you do that, that's the cool thing about that, as the more you do that, then the bigger picture begins to unfold. And you potentially are going to start to recognize what the bigger picture is, and maybe what your bigger purpose is. Yet not forgetting how important these, let's call them smaller ones, actually are, because they're very, very significant as well.
Yeah. There's a Chinese proverb that says every long journey starts with the first step.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually, that saying, that Chinese proverb, I have my own version of that. And my own version of that is simply is with the awareness that it begins with the first step. Because if what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe someone never told you that it starts with the first step. So having the awareness that, listen, hey, this big picture that you have, it starts with this first step.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Ken, you have been in the corporate world for over 20 years. I wonder, what were some of your greatest challenges that yourself faced during those years up to now? And can you tell us of some strategies that you used to face those back then, or before you have all this NLP training and so on? How did you face challenges?
Yeah, a lot of crying. Yeah, there were times when it felt like I was going to lose everything.
Mm,
And those were very big moments in my life, very pivotal moments in my life.
mm,
And that's why one of the reasons I began using adapt and pivot as well, because adapt is change,
mm,
and pivoting is embracing that change. Those big moments in my life, without a doubt, were when I had one of my the first retail shop that I had. Um, I had to make a decision to close it. It was a hard decision. I held on way too long to this shop, thinking I could turn things around, and held on probably for an extra 2 years without necessarily doing that.
mm,
Um, uh, Coping, support is always great when you have good support, people around you, good people around you to help you get through those difficult moments.
mm,
Yeah, and again, fortunately, because you mentioned, fortunately, I was already beginning to dabble into mindset, and without a doubt, that helped. Without a doubt,
mm,
because I started to understand how I can start to shift things very quickly
mm,
and shift results. So and experience, learning experience, and I think a really good coping mechanism, if you want to call it a coping mechanism for those who are listening and going through maybe challenging moments, is realizing that ultimately you can never fail. You can never fail.
mm,
What do I mean by that? Because again, if I look back at when had to close that shop, for instance, one of the biggest things that was a challenge for me was that I felt like I was failing.
mm,
And on top of that, and I want to mention this because I think this affects many entrepreneurs as well, and individuals alike, not just an entrepreneur. And ultimately, I believe everybody is an entrepreneur,
mm,
because, and the reason I say that is because we're all in this business called life.
mm,
And one of the biggest things that affects anybody is if you're still caught up in thinking about what you think other people are going to think and believe about you, this is gonna be very, very detrimental. Because if you're worried about what you think other people are going to be thinking, so I remember when I had to close this shop, for instance, I was thinking, people are potentially thinking I'm a failure. He's going to have to close the shop. He's not successful, and all of these things. And the fact of the matter is, people aren't thinking about you because they're thinking about their own life
mm,
and the challenges they have in their own life and what they need to deal with. They're essentially the center of their own universe, as you are, as I am the center of my own universe.
mm,
So if you can take that one thing on, if you're listening, anybody listening here, if you can take that one thing on and realize, I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking because they're really not.
yeah.
So you can start to make maybe better decisions because they're not based on that anymore. Even when it comes to moving forward with your future and you want to make certain decisions and you have people telling you, oh, I don't think that's going to work, that, that's going to be too difficult and all of these things, remind yourself that they're only telling you that mostly because they still haven't figured out how to do it themselves.
Mm,
So, and I'm not saying not to take good advice from people. There are people out there who maybe have experience and they can show you certain things. Yet, ultimately what's good for you
mm,
and how to move forward. So those are some of the aspects for me that help me to get through those moments. Like I said, support, realizing that I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking, and also you can never fail. So whatever the result is, even though it may appear to be a failure,
mm,
just look at it as feedback
mm,
and say, okay, what's the feedback I can take from this? Well,
mm,
this didn't work. This didn't work. This
mm,
wouldn't work. What can I change so
mm.
that now I can get a better result the next time around?
Yeah. What I maybe can add to that, there's no failings, there's only learning moments.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You learn. You
Mm.
learn.
Mm. Okay, I think we're going to take a short break here, 30 seconds or for some information, and then we'll come back very soon. Okay?
Brilliant.
Dear viewers and listeners, I hope you like this podcast. Do you feel stuck in ways you don't like? Do you want to change but don't know how? Coaching can change all that. It can be a start on a journey where you grow and develop beyond what you thought was possible for you. If you want this change, go to lifeleadershipconnected.com, lifeleadershipconnected.com, and sign up for a free consultation call. Or grab my free guide, Unlock the Overlooked Path to Fulfillment, the one thing blocking your purpose and how to remove it. You find it in my LinkedIn page, David Daleno Cruz. Start your journey of transformation today. I am your life and leadership coach, David Daleno Cruz. Hello and welcome back to the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. Today I interview Ken Attard. Let's continue with the questions. As you have worked now with clients for about 15 years, what would you say are some of the most common problems your clients come to you with in your practice? You mentioned it in the beginning, you talked about this imposter syndrome. I believe that is one of the biggest. But can you add to that, or do you see some other things that
Sure.
that are really common?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So without a doubt, like I mentioned, like the self-doubt, you know, entrepreneurs doubting that they're potentially not good enough at what they do, which ties in with the imposter syndrome, basically. Without a doubt, uncertainty, right? Because, everybody wants to have certainty, and which is great. The one thing that you can be certain about is the fact that there's going to be uncertainty at times, and being able to embrace that. Same thing as change, being able to embrace change. And without a doubt, one of the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges that I find for many entrepreneurs is clarity. Sometimes they have really great ideas. Potentially, they have a business that is up and functioning, yet they're still not clear on where they want to go, how they're heading. So creating that clarity, understanding how to set well-formed goals, understanding about, so there's so many aspects. But as you create clarity, and the interesting thing is this, is you can't have doubt and clarity at the same time. So the minute doubt begins to dissipate, things start to become more clear. So that's definitely one of them. Yet I would have to say the biggest one when it comes to entrepreneurs, the biggest challenge, more than a challenge, yet I'd say that, let me not call it a challenge. I'd say the biggest issue is actually not being aware of how powerful mindset actually is and disregarding it. I like to call it the triple U syndrome, and the U being the letter U. And it's really simple. It's that, you see, most people have, and entrepreneurs included, have heard about mindset in one way or another, right? I mean, information is available, like more than ever. I like to say this. I say, you and I can have more information available to us in one day than my grandparents could have had available to them in a lifetime.
Yeah.
In one day, I can have all that information available to me. And there's a lot of information, and it is important to decipher the information that you're looking at. Yet the information's there about mindset. And when I speak to people and entrepreneurs, most of them have heard something about mindset. They may have even listened to a podcast similar to this one and said, that's really intriguing. Ken was talking about some stuff, and David, they were talking about some stuff that was really, really interesting. One day, I'll look into it. Because the entrepreneur goes, listen, I have this to do today. I have this to do. I have to do this today. And let's face it, like even if I look at my own business, for instance, I always have something to do if I want to. There's always something to do. So what happens is entrepreneurs get so engrossed in all of these tasks, these everyday tasks that they need to do, that the mindset part, they sort of like put it on the back burner. They say, oh, one day I'll get to it. So the first U of the triple U syndrome is it's underrated.
Mhm.
Because the fact of the matter is this, if you truly knew that mindset was your superpower and affected every single result and experience in your life, wouldn't you dedicate time to it every single day?
Mhm.
Probably. But most don't. They say, I'll get to it because I got all these other things to do that seem to be most important. This is where most entrepreneurs have been fooled to believe that all of these tasks that you need to be doing are the most important things that need to be done.
Mm.
So that's the first. So it's underrated. The second U is essentially it's underestimated. Again, the power of it is underestimated. It's no different than, I like to describe it like this. So, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, David, but it's definitely happened to me. I buy a book, but I still haven't read it yet. I leave it there for a long time. It's happened to most people, right? You leave it there, it's on the shelf. I just need to pull the book off the shelf, open up the pages and start reading, even if it's just one page a day. And it's the same thing with mindset. It gets underestimated. It gets put on the back burner. It's left there. One day I'll get to it. And the one day never comes. It just gets left there. So it's underrated. It's underestimated. And finally, the last one, it's underutilized purposefully. And I say this and I say purposefully because, as I said earlier, you're using your mindset. But now when you start to become more aware of how it actually functions, you can purposely use it. So it gets underutilized putting any purpose to utilizing it, it's just underutilized. So now, and anybody listening, I can let them off the hook. It's okay. There's a reason why you're not utilizing it. There's a reason why you're not utilizing it purposefully and why you underrate it and why you underestimate it. It's really simple. You just don't believe in it enough. You still don't have a strong enough belief that mindset actually is your superpower.
Yeah.
And that's why you leave it there. So that to me is the biggest issue when it comes to entrepreneurs is that, hey, listen, do you know why mindset is actually your superpower? Do you want to know how it actually functions? How it works? Do you want to know what you really need to be focused on? And do you want to know where you're actually heading? Do you want to be heading towards what I like to call true freedom, real business success? Or do you want to be heading down a rabbit hole where you actually don't even have freedom? It's amazing how many entrepreneurs begin their business because they want time freedom, they want financial freedom, they want all of this freedom, yet so many of them are working way more than they've ever worked before. They still have not achieved the results that they want to achieve, and this freedom eludes them. They go down a rabbit hole, and the further they go down, the more challenging it is going to be for them to pull themselves out. So this is what I see as some of the biggest challenges that I've come across over the years.
Yeah. And if I can relate to that, there's so much information out there, but what you really need is transformation. And how do you get that? Well, you could hire a coach, a consultant like you, somebody you can change thoughts with, that can hold up a mirror to your face. This is you. And so you start to use, as you said, use these thoughts, use some of this information that applies to you. So
absolutely, 100% agree. And you used a great word when it comes to transformation. And that's what I'm all about, is people actually having these transformations. And someone listening might say, wow, that seems like really big a transformation. Yet the transformation begins bit by bit, like we said, one step at a time, right? And it's really important, even in the entrepreneurial. It's one of the things I like to teach about as well, is because a lot of entrepreneurs are interested in let's say, making the next sale, and which is very transactional. Yet when you can begin to make it transformational, and you can do that with any business in the sense of how are you treating your clients? Are you giving them the customer service that they truly deserve? Are you treating them in a way that you're transforming the way you do business so that you create recurring trade,
Mm.
that you're actually building a relationship with your clients.
Yeah.
And this is where it begins to become transformational as well. For me, it's not about having thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. It's not something that I need.
No.
I'm interested in working with a group of clients who become long-term clients because we grow together.
Yeah.
And this is where the transformation happens, because the transformation doesn't happen just for them. It happens for me too, because I'm continuously growing and learning, and I learn from my clients too.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's funny, like, even when I'm, like yesterday I was giving a talk, and as I'm giving the talk, I'm talking about something and I'm going, Ken, potentially you could do a little more of this as well, right? So I'm learning as well. I'm going, okay, I could be a little more consistent here with this aspect. So I'm continuously learning as well. I mean, if I were to come to you, if any coach or consultant were to come to me and say, you know what, I know it all. I know exactly what you need to be doing. I've figured out everything. I would be a bit wary about working with that person potentially, because there's so much that it's a journey.
Yeah.
And as much of it's the cliche of all cliches is you really just need to be enjoying the journey. And if you're doing that, and if you're truly enjoying your journey, you've actually uncovered, I would say, one of the most profound secrets of this life. Because if you're enjoying the journey, that's what it's all about, enjoying the journey. And when you can do that, you're on your way to success for sure.
Great. Thank you. You offer a program called The Mindset Choice, the choice that changes everything. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a completely free program. It's not an inundating program, so it doesn't go on forever, because believe it or not, one of the biggest challenges as well for entrepreneurs is time. For most people, it's time. How many times do I hear, oh, Ken, but I don't have time for this. Like, this is going to change your life. You're telling me you don't have time for this. So this is a program that in the essence of it all, I mean, the duration of it in total is probably about 2.5 hours. Yet I split it up into, I call them 8 days. So 8 days, you have day 0. I just give you some instructions so you have the best experience possible. Day 1, day 2, day 3, you've got half an hour videos that you watch at your leisure. And then you have 4 bonus days of 15 minutes each. And the essence of this, the mindset choice, the choice that changes everything, is I begin to divulge, again, why mindset is so important. You start to realize how you do have control. You start to realize that you begin to actually start to design the way you want your life to be. And I take you through this process through these videos. Now, what I've done that I believe is really cool with this program is that although it's a recorded program, anybody listening to it is going to have a link to my messenger on Facebook or my WhatsApp, where as they're listening to the videos, I'm going to be asking them certain questions or telling them certain words, prompting them. And I ask them to actually type in these words to their messenger, to my messenger or to my WhatsApp, whatever they choose. So what's going to happen is when they're doing that, I'm going to receive that my message personally. When I receive that message, one, it's an indication that they're actually going through the program. So I can see that. But I'm also going to interact with them myself. Potentially real time, depending on where you are in the world, at what time I receive the message. Like if you're sending me the message at 1 o'clock in the morning, my time, I'm probably not going to answer you. But at some point I will. But if it's at a time where I'm available and it's a reasonable time, I'm going to interact with you right away. So there's going to be a bit of a personal touch as well. And you can actually ask some questions if you want to as well. So there's going to be that personal touch as well. And this is the first step. This is why I wanted to offer this completely free of charge. I make it very clear in the instructions. Later on during the program, I tell you about another program that I do have. I make it very clear. There's nothing for me to hide. And again, I have another program that's about clarity. So this is where I'm taking, but this is what the mindset choice is all about. It's about making a choice You know what? Yes. I'm going to begin to be a little more dedicated to what's going on up here
Mm.
so that I can change certain results and experiences in my life.
Yeah. So this is like an entry program for change to happen. Is that
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, because it starts to create the awareness.
Mm.
Everything starts from awareness. So you mentioned in the very beginning, the ARC method
Mm.
that I have has 5 major pillars. And the first pillar is awareness.
Mm.
And awareness is about learning
Mm.
and being willing to learn. Yet on top of that, it's also about unlearning.
Mm.
Because where do people's beliefs come from? Well, they've been taught something. Now, just because you've been taught something does not necessarily mean it's the truth
Mm.
or the best way. So sometimes we need to unlearn things so that we can learn new things.
Mm.
And it starts from there. And definitely this program is definitely this first step. It starts to create awareness.
Mm. Great. You've authored something called A Consumer Educational Guide with the title How to Step into the Magic of Successful Entrepreneur Now. Can you say something about that?
Sure. So that's a consumer educational guide. I give some steps as to how to what I believe. Again, it comes to becoming a successful entrepreneur. This is a simple consumer awareness guide. Again, this is something that if someone is interested and they want to get in touch with me,
Mhm.
they can do that, and I can actually they can have access to this consumer educational guide
Yeah.
free of charge as well.
Mhm.
So again, it starts to go through certain steps, starts to create a little more awareness.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another step
Yeah.
for someone who potentially is maybe could be some people on the fence. They want to become an entrepreneur, but not sure what they need to start doing.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
some seasoned entrepreneurs who want to figure out a few more things when it comes to mindset as well.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
start to talk about that. I mentioned about the ARC method, and there's different steps that I go into in that consumer educational guide, without a doubt. And that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's just educating people.
Yeah. Okay, great. I usually ask 4 questions in the podcast,
Cool.
and the first one I'll give you here. What gives you purpose, Ken? What gives you purpose and meaning in life? What is your why, your purpose, your motivation for what you do?
For me, it's impact. Having an impact with entrepreneurs when it comes to helping them with their mindset and seeing them make the changes and the transformations, which ultimately makes them feel better. And on top of that, I would say, for me, again, the biggest things is having this impact with anybody I interact with. Now, not necessarily from a standpoint of mindset, yet I make it a goal of myself that when I walk away from a conversation with someone, I want to walk away leaving them feeling better about themselves than when we first met. So that for me is really, really important.
Great. Thanks. Another question I ask everybody is tell me about your leadership of yourself and others, and about some challenges and milestones that have shaped you to the person you are today, and maybe the most important lesson you've learned as a leader. And you touched a bit on it already about milestones and challenges. But is there something you would like to add there? For example, what is the most important lesson you've learned as a leader?
What is the most important lesson that I've learned as a leader? I would say it's detachment. And when I say detachment, I like to talk about the fact that, like, I highly suggest for anybody to start to begin to understand about detachment in the sense of not being attached to anything that is of this world. And this is a hard pill to swallow for many. So, as an entrepreneur, not being attached to your business, not being attached to your children, not being attached to your partners, and not being attached to anything of this world. And what do I mean by that? Now, this doesn't mean that you don't love your partners, that you don't love your children, that you don't take care of your children. Far from it. But the fact of the matter that anything of this world, in many different aspects, could be gone in a flash. You have your business today, it could be gone tomorrow. Why the detachment? Because if you are so attached to something, It becomes to become part of your identity. And if it's gone tomorrow, you're going to feel very, very empty. Very empty. Yet if you're not attached, you're going to have the realization that with or without your business, who you are, your worth, your inner worth, it's never compromised. It's never, you're still worthy. Lose a business, go bankrupt, you're still worthy. You start again. So that for me would be something really, really big, that when you can begin to learn about that detachment, because now it's there, it's not. Like if you walk outside and your car is gone, is it something that you like? No. But it doesn't take away from who you are. And this starts to make life much more flowing, easy, and it's just going to help you get through any challenges in life, because some challenges will arise from time to time.
Yeah. Let's dig a little bit more around this about identity. And if somebody comes to you and say, I don't know who I am, I don't know what my identity is. I mean, really, they're really, something happened in life and that have really rocked them. And what are the first maybe 3-4 steps that you would guide them through to get on the path again?
Well, I start asking some questions. I would have to find out maybe a little more context as to what's gone on.
Yeah.
It's more than likely it's going to tie into some very strong beliefs that they have. So, if someone has a very strong belief that for them to be worthy or successful, they need to have a thriving business. Let's use that example, and they don't, then they're going to feel that, who am I? So I would start to divulge what this belief is, where their identity is wrapped up in, because evidently they think something's missing. They think something's missing. So we're going to start to divulge that in actual fact, there really is nothing missing. Now we're going to have to get to the root potentially of where this came from. It's an ingrained belief. A belief is simply a thought that you've thought over and over and over and over, or someone taught it to you as well, right? So, in the entrepreneurial world, we it's really interesting. The teachers of entrepreneurship very often teach about how difficult entrepreneurship is. They often teach about how many sacrifices you need to make. They often teach about how much you need to struggle. How often are you going to hear that before you start to believe it? If you're going to believe it, it's going to manifest. So if you believe that being an entrepreneur is a struggle, that's what's going to appear in your life, struggle. Right? So with anybody, something like that is having let's say a crisis with their identity, or they're not sure who they are, we're going to have to divulge, what's going on. What was their identity, again, attached to something particular, which is now gone. Has this disappeared? It's no different than, I don't know, let's say, because people very often use I am this or I am that, which is very much, identity. So someone could very simply not even realize and say, I don't know, I am a smoker. No, that's not who you are. You smoke, but that's not who you are. Yet many will identify. So for them if they've really identified with that, that's who they are. Now, if they want to get rid of that, that's going to be somewhat of a challenge, unless you find something else that will fill that void. Right? This happened to the first astronauts. They went to the moon, came back. The parades were finished, everything was done, and there were astronauts saying, who am I? Because I just went to the moon and back. So and I spent all my life dedicated to becoming an astronaut and doing this, and now this is finished. If you're not prepared mentally for that, it's going to leave a big void. So now we need to fill that void with something else. That's potentially going to give them some purpose. Again, so we'll be looking at all those different aspects.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. A third question we ask everybody in the podcast. Tell me about what gives you life within the area of focus you've chosen most of your time in your life, and how you keep energy at high level day by day, Ken.
How do I keep energy level? But I believe I believe if you're doing something that you're passionate about, that's going to give you energy. That's going to give you energy. I'm going to make another suggestion as well when it comes to move every day. When I say move every day, when it comes to, because this is going to give you energy as well, right? So, and this has come up recently very often. Move every day. If it's a bit of exercise, some walking every day, because what you're doing today as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old is going to affect how you're going to be able to move when you're 60, 70, 80, right? It's the incremental. And like anything else, it's the consistency, right? And being passionate about whatever you do. Like I would never suggest to someone to retire. It doesn't mean you don't stop the work that potentially you were doing and you do something else that you have a passion for, that you enjoy, that gives you, when you think about it, it makes you feel good. That is going to get you up in the morning.
Yeah.
So if I know that, I was looking forward to this podcast this morning. I was looking forward to having this conversation because I know it's something that I love doing. After here, I'm moving on. I'm going to a networking event. I'm looking forward to that because I'm going to be able to talk to some people, make some new connections because that's what I love doing. Potentially looking at potential new clients who can come into some of my because that's what I love doing. And that, I believe, is the if you can find your passion, what you're passionate about. So maybe you're passionate about gardening. Do it. And that's going to wake you up every morning as you're moving on in your life, maybe getting older in your life. Just do stuff that you are passionate about.
Yeah, good. Many leaders, they work a lot and they forget the family life and forget to forget this balance. What would you say? How do you combine life with what you do now, and to keep the balance between life and your work issues?
So the thing for that is this. And again, many entrepreneurs do it the reverse. You design the way you want your life first. And then your business intertwines with how you have designed your life. Yet so many entrepreneurs do it the reverse. They go so fast and headfirst into their business, which I understand, that they dedicate so much time and energy to their business first, and then their life has to intertwine with their business. And this is why they start to feel the burnout and all of this stuff, and it becomes imbalanced because they haven't designed their life first. So if you say, and this is a really important factor because values tie in with this, right? So identify what your values are. And there's so many values, but you need to identify what your values are and what your top values are. So for me, my top values are authenticity, joy, lost it for a second here. Authenticity, joy, and freedom. Those are very important to me. So if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to choose to do something that, let's say, is involved with my business, if this isn't going to give me joy, it's a no. If this is going to take away from my freedom, it's a no. If I'm not feeling it as authentic, that I don't know, let's say, for instance, you came to me today and said, Ken, you can only say this, and you can only say this, and you can only say this. That's taking away from my authenticity. I just want to say things the way I believe in them, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a no for me. So when you know those values, so if you say family is an important value to you, and I want to design my life, and in my life, my family is important to me, and I dedicate this time to my family. So for instance, you're starting a business and you say, you know what? Wednesday afternoons, irrespective of what's going on, I finish early and this is my family time, for instance.
Hmm.
Now, when you're designing your business, you're not setting appointments on Wednesday afternoon. You're not having meetings on Wednesday afternoon because your schedule now says that's family time.
Hmm.
So you see how now your life is fitting into your business the way you're designing it.
Hmm.
Because that's an important value to you.
Yeah.
Maybe your health is, and you say, you know what, my health is very important to me. Designing my life, I go to the gym, for instance, or I do my workout, whatever, 3 times a week, and this is when I do it. You're not setting meetings at that time. You're not, well, again, you're not doing your work at that time. You're not looking at emails at that time because at that time you're doing your workout. So now you're designing your life. So that's how I go about my life, is like, I find that these are important to me. This time is important to me. My health is important to me, and identifying those areas that are important to you.
Yeah.
So if your spirituality is important to you, when are you dedicating time to your spirituality? If quiet time is important to you, meditation is important to you, when are you doing your meditation? You know, if health is important to you, when are you taking care of your health? How are you taking care of your health?
Yeah.
And you start to incorporate all of those things into your life.
Yeah. And one thing I think about when you say this is discipline. That's one of the core value, or not values, but core skills as a leader, I think, to be disciplined for setting up time to all this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to soften it a bit. Soften it in the sense of discipline for many.
Yeah.
Again, so so I'm all about flow, right? And things moving forward.
Yeah.
So with discipline, many feel a certain resistance to it, that it's something difficult, that there's something pushing against you, right?
Yeah.
So I like to often just substitute that word, and I've used it a number of times here as well, with dedication.
Okay, that's good.
It is the same, but you notice how it even feels so, it's more powerful, and it's more of a flowing, moving forward word, I call it. So it just be dedicated to it. Just be dedicated to your health. Just be dedicated to your relationships. Just be dedicated to your spirituality. And there's a lot less resistance to it.
Yeah.
Right? And again, I want to remind people, like, you are human. You're not going to get things perfect all the time and exactly the way you want it all the time. That is okay. It's okay. You didn't eat the most healthiest foods today. It's okay. You start again tomorrow. Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Don't take things too seriously. It's as simple as that. And laugh a lot more. That's what I tell people all the time. Laugh a lot more, especially when you can laugh at yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Is there anything that we have missed to talk about so far in the podcast, Ken, that you would like to add to these things?
Anything that we missed that I'd like to add? No, I think I'm good. I think what we wanted to cover, I think it's really good. And again, the only thing I'll add is, like what I just said now, is for people to really relax into their life and not take things too seriously, because it's a short life.
Yeah.
In the bigger scheme of things, I believe I heard once, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, I believe it was once. And he was talking about, in the bigger scheme of things, when you look at your life from a standpoint of the divine and how long your life is here on this planet, it's a blip and it's over. That's all it is. So live the moments. If they're going to add anything, and it's nothing that we haven't really said, it'd be simply this: live the moments in as much joy as you can. Because the moments, and literally a moment is not like what we talked about 2 minutes ago, it's done.
Yeah.
But the moment is now. So live your moments as joyfully as you can, because you only have your moments. Those moments are going to make up the minutes. The minutes are going to make up the hours are going to make up the days are going to make up the weeks are going to make up the months are going to make up the years are going to make up your lifetime. So if you can enjoy moments, as many joyful moments as you can have, means that you're going to be enjoying the journey and you're going to have a joyful lifetime.
Perfect.
That's the only thing I would add. Nothing that we haven't said. We just framed it a little bit differently.
Yeah. If people want to get a hold of you and learn more from you, where can they go? Or is there some web page you want to lift up and so on?
Sure, absolutely. So they can go to growth for the number 4 entrepreneurs.com. They can go there, and that's where they can actually also register for the free program, which is the Mindset Choice program. So they can go there, they can get a little more information about me as well, and what the Mindset Choice is all about, and register there as well. If they want to send me an email, by all means, ken@mindsetmalta.com. So that's ken@mindsetmalta.com. Send me an email and I will definitely reply to you. You can also find me on Facebook if you'd like. You can find me personally, Ken Attard. You can find Mindset Malta. Same thing on Instagram. You can find Mindset Malta as well. LinkedIn, Ken Attard. You can find me as well. Any of those, and I will definitely, if you send me a personal message, I will definitely be in touch with you, or you engage in any way on those pages, I will definitely be in touch with you personally.
Great. Thank you. Are there any last thought you want to give our listeners, viewers? Maybe some quote, something that really struck, that we want they want them to keep with them when they leave this podcast.
Sure. So besides the fact that, like I said, just remember to laugh a lot more every single day, especially when you can laugh at yourself. Another quote that really sticks to mind for me recently that I came across is, remember this: it is impossible not to believe what you see. It's impossible not to believe what you see, but it is equally impossible to see what you don't believe. So it's very easy to believe what you're seeing, which is not always real anyways, but that's a whole different. Yet it is equally impossible to see what you don't believe. So you start to shift that belief here, and you start to see differently. Your outside world begins to change.
Thank you, Ken, for this, and for your participation in this podcast. It's been a real pleasure for me to listen to you and learn.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, David.
Okay, viewers and listeners, this is the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. Thank you for listening today, and we empower your journey. Thank you for listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or elsewhere, maybe watching on YouTube. And welcome back when we release our next episode. And until then, bye-bye.